the the one thing that you want to be looking at is what's it going to take to get that 15 or 20% growth? And if you're healthy enough that you're doing 90% or more in retention, it's not going to take as much. And then you get to be more dialed in on the targets that you're going after because you're retaining what you've already brought in. And that retention is going to help feed you without having to go and knock on more doors.
Very cool. Tito, would you like to take a shot at that? What sets them apart?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, I'm going to share maybe in talking to a lot of the sales leaders around the country, and when they're looking for these top producers, and in talking to top producers, I compiled a couple different, a small list of things that works well for them. But some of the top producers, I'll start with this. It's pretty simple from a mindset standpoint. They all want to do it versus having the mindset of I have to do this. Which usually leads these guys to be, or gals to have the behaviors to be top producers and sell over $1 million a year. And a couple of different attributes and things that I've seen pretty consistent across the board when we're talking to top producers. Number one, they see themselves as a peer with their prospects. The relationships that they establish are balanced. They're not going to talk to a prospect and more or less, looking up to them, looking down to them. It's an adult to adult thing, and they always see them as peers. Number two, they all act as if they don't need the work, so they're constantly in a position of strength, which allows them to more or less go out there and continue to sell. Number three, they all bring value to the table. They go into prospects with they need me mindset. Which obviously, it gives them gives the prospect, and this again, as I've been talking to a lot of these top producers, they're always thinking about how I can help my prospects, which obviously leads to those behaviors. Number four, and this is something that I do for myself, has always helped me, and I've seen the top producers have this confidence of we all feel like we deserve success. We always think that we want and need to win. And that's pretty consistent as well. Number five, all of them share this, and it's that rejection is part of the process. I've heard, in talking to a lot of sales leaders and hiring managers and top producers, they're okay with moving on to the next opportunity. We're not going to win it all, right? But it's being okay with that and understanding that rejection is part of the process. Number six, no is okay. I seen some of the best producers being okay with the no as an outcome. And it's definitely, I would say it's something that a lot of people think of, like, some of the top producers. And when you're thinking, hey, I'm chasing millions to sell millions of dollars a year, it's going to come with its no. And oftentimes, there's an idea of that's not going to happen, but ultimately it is. And number seven, and this is consistent across the board, ultimately it comes down to understanding why you're doing this and why you're wanting to sell and be a top producer. Every top producer understands that and has a clear understanding as to why they're getting up to go and produce for their, number one, for themselves, and number two, to hit their goals.
I want to draw both of you to a start of the year. Let's say it's 2024. Okay, you have a sales target. Let's say that's, I don't know, 1.5 million, $2 million that you need to go and get. What do you do about that? Like, where do you start? Like, imagine you're literally starting fresh. You don't have a freaking pipeline to work off. Okay, you move to a new city, or you just got into this job, like, and you guys, you've done it a few times. Like, where do you start? Patrick?
Well, I mean, I can speak from experience. I moved to Chicagoland, knew nobody there, had some commercial relationships, but didn't really necessarily have direct ties to anybody that I could walk in the door and immediately start signing business in Chicagoland. So the first thing I did, I needed to learn my company structure, how quickly I could get bids on the street, and and start any opportunity I could get. I was diving into and getting those numbers out on the street. And what I learned really quickly was every bid, I would try to get the bid out and immediately start communicating for feedback, communication with the property manager, the HOA board, whoever I had contact with. And I started learning really quickly that the company I was working for, we were 15, 20% higher than the highest bid on a lot of the stuff I was turning in. So I just started asking for contracts, asking for my opposition's contracts, asking for, I mean, honestly, if I'm the highest bid, what do they have to lose by giving me the numbers that they're already currently paying? So now that I'm starting to collect these contracts, and I've got folders from multiple major markets, and I've now learned that's the first thing I do when I want to be competitive in a major market is the Oppo research. So after I start collecting that, I start dialing my contracts to get apples to apples with the rest of the market. And when you've sold in a couple different markets or a couple different industries, the number one thing you need to do is know that the bid you're putting out is apples to apples with everybody else. After that, I learned even putting apples to apples, I was still coming in a little bit high.
What do you mean apples to apples?
Like whatever they were currently paying for, I was trying to mimic, to make sure that my bid was being built the same exact way. And then even after I got to the point where I was building the bid the same way, I'm like, I'm still coming in high. So what is different here? And I quickly learned, especially with how hyper competitive a market like, say, Chicago or Atlanta or DC is, that when you get these RFPs on commercial properties, people aren't bidding what it says in the RFP. They are bidding what they feel the property actually needs, and they're actually ignoring certain areas of the RFP. I'll give you an example. I did a warehouse bid in Chicago. They called for 30 mows a year. I knew damn well none of these places were irrigated, and I wasn't going to be doing 30 mows a year, so I trimmed that number down to like 28 or 26. I would always bid maybe too higher than what I thought we actually needed to do, regardless of what the RFP said. Every contract in Chicagoland was going out with 4 turf apps. I learned after 1 year in that market that if I had 2 well-timed turf apps, I didn't need any more than that. And I would honestly, rather than match it, knowing that most people weren't doing the 4 and that they were only doing the 2, I would only put the 2 on the contract and then go to the client and have a real conversation. Hey, I know your RFP says 4. We don't need to put that much chemical down. I can make it look good with 2. This is a real bid on the actual services I'm going to be providing. No smoke and mirrors. And that's really where I learned to get dial in. And I could rinse and repeat that in any major market. It's just analyzing the market, knowing where your competition stands, and having real conversation with whoever you're trying to sell to.
Tito, how would you approach it?
Yeah. I'll echo that, what Patrick said in regards to analyzing your market, right? I think that's the biggest piece. If I were to go in, and I've done that, I have indeed done that in two different types of industries. One is the like landscaping, and then obviously for us is recruitment. But one is analyzing your market, analyze your competitors. Every market, every market is different. And so, you're going to have some nuanced things specific to your market that you're going to have to research and understand. How you do that, it's networking. I think this is, if you're going in a new market, you have to network as much as possible. Ask questions, get through gatekeepers to get to decision makers. I mean, really understand what you're up against. And number 2, like Patrick said, in terms of markets, that also means that your labor rates are going to be different as well. So if you're trying to use Patrick's, how he said it, right, in terms of competing apples to apples, you need to understand what that labor, what those labor rates are going to be more or less, as well, specific to that market, so that you can be competitive. And then ultimately, once you compile that much information, which can take you a little bit of time, you come up with a plan. At least for me, that's something that's been super effective in any sales approach that I've had, as I create a cookbook, right? And more or less that's going to give me.
How much time, let's say it's your first month, how much time would you spend researching and then do your plan, or do you do it simultaneously?
Yeah, no, I would say give your, a couple weeks, could be, 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, more or less. Just depends on, also how much territory. If you're going into a market where there's multiple salespeople, if it's narrowed down enough where you have a smaller market, if you will, or smaller territory, then it makes it a little bit quicker, makes it a little bit easier. I would always start either way to kind of keep things as dense, to give yourself a lot of density, if you will, in a specific area. I would probably recommend that's something anyone should do. But secondly, obviously, just if it's not that and it's a broader market, well, maybe that means you're working or trying to chase after larger contracts, right? A lot of times, but ultimately, diversity should be top of mind. But I never, irrespective of what you're trying to chase, having a plan is ultimately was gonna help you understand how to meet what you're trying to get to, right? And that's going to be different for everyone. Like, again, to Patrick's point, if you're going into a market like Chicagoland, if you will, or any market for that matter, there are certain opportunities that you can seek, for example, that will help you be more competitive, and that's what you're trying to understand. And then obviously every company, in terms of their estimating, if you will, those metrics and those numbers are going to be different across the board. So I would recommend that everyone, before you go out and try to talk to prospect, if you will, understand what your estimate templates are, understand what your rates are. That's going to better prepare you to more or less understand if you will and can be competitive. Talk to decision makers internally to more or less come up with a very tailored plan. To more or less meet your goals. And then from there, that'll help you more or less to go out and network and feel confident that you can be a solution for your prospects.
We're getting a few questions here in chat. We got one from Joe. Patrick, I think this is absolutely on point on, I don't know if you can see it, but he's basically saying what happens in case even after you do this gap identification, you will see that in the Q&A button if you click on the Q&A button. If you do the gap identification, and even then after apples and apples comparison, the prospect decides to go after the lowest price. I mean, what'd you do?
You're going to run into it in commercial all the time, especially in like hyper competitive markets. If it's bottom line driven, if it's truly bottom line driven and relationship has no value, is that really a target vertical that you want to be involved in? And I'll give you good examples. There's multiple different major companies that do warehouses in the United States. There's two really big ones that are top tier, top shelf companies that have budgets that I have no problem going in a little bit tight to win that work. But the mass majority of these warehouse companies, I won't even touch because it's absolutely bottom line driven and it's not worth my time. I'm looking for bids that I can win by being in the middle of the pack or slightly higher than the middle of the pack. I want there to be some relationship foundation for me to be involved. And I'm also looking for the opportunity of, when it gets to my CSMs or AMs, are they going to have enhancement opportunity? Because that's what's going to keep them roped into getting that 90% retention. So if they're bottom line driven, no enhancement opportunity, you're probably better off putting your time into something that's going to work a little bit better. I hope that answers your questions. And then another way to look at it too is, if you know they're completely bottom line driven and you know you're apples to apples, don't send in your bid. Go show up, get in front of them. Walk them through while you're better. Try to build that actual relationship. A lot of times they can move on the cams a little bit to make that change if they see somebody that's passionate and committed to providing good service to their properties.
Very cool. Tito, this one is for you. Where do you network? Are there certain types of professional organizations better to join or participate, or other avenues? Keep in mind, we just talked about like verticals you should go after that are higher margin when you answer this question.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's identifying first and foremost what your target clientele is, right? And that should help you determine what networking organizations are better for your, for your goals. There's the nice thing is that there's a number of them. There are some that are driven towards or tailored towards multifamily, some that are more, the commercial aspect of it, some that are more industrial. I would say, identify what vertical is going to work well for you. if you're chasing or pursuing a new vertical, if you will, that ultimately go after those organizations, and they're different, right? I mean, that's the nice thing about a lot of these organizations. And in terms of getting it in front of decision makers, again, there's two ways. There's the old school face to face. I like that a little bit better. I find it to be more effective. And then obviously there's digital ways now to do that as well. And we can, in terms of the use of technology to target decision makers, there's a lot of technology and a lot of resources for that as well.
All right. I want to ask you one question, even though we are sort of running behind time. It is, how do you manage your inputs? When I say inputs, I mean that's like hustling around this town, knocking on doors, sending emails, making calls, visiting properties, making relationships with clients. So those are your inputs. So how do you manage your inputs, and sort of match it with the speed with which your pipeline should get filled, given you want to get to 1.5 million at the end of the year?
You asking me, Karsh?
I mean, I was just asking Patrick. Like by default, we'll just run it this way. Like Patrick first, you next.
Okay. Honestly, I want to start with what I know works. So I'm going to analyze whatever company I'm working for. I'm going to analyze their current portfolio. I'm going to see what verticals they have that are performing the best, and then work with the existing client-facing staff to figure out what they're already managing that might have opportunities. So if I know what verticals are already working for my organization, and I know what relationships we already have strong, that is the lowest hanging fruit to building my pipeline. And that is where I'm going to start with any organization that I walk into. Once I have that established, if I'm brand new to a market or a company, I'm going to pick maybe two target verticals, because I don't want to get spread too thin too fast. So I'm going to pick two target verticals, usually to start out with for that first year or that first 24 months. So maybe my company's really strong at HOAs, so I'm going to join CAI for that market. If my company's really heavy in commercial, I'm hoping they're already in BOMA. If not, then I'm going to jump into IFMA or IREM or figure out what organizations that I'm going to get some good client-facing time with. Once you establish that, I'm a big fan of, you can't really be more involved than two main organizations healthy at one time, because I want to be on committees. I want to try and be on a board position if I can. So I want to pick out the two organizations that I'm going to put my effort into, and then I'm going to research the market. Who are the top HOA management companies? I'm in Atlanta, man. Highwoods has some amazing properties. I'm going to throw them high up on my list. And then I'm not cold calling. I'm not sending emails. I'm walking in the door. And another good way to help you get dialed into what doors to walk into, if you have a business journal or Cranes in Chicago, you want that book of lists. That book of lists, I don't get it every year, maybe every other year when I'm doing business development, especially on the commercial side. That book of lists is going to dial me into who my targets probably should be. And that's a really easy way to start. I mean, I could go on, we could do a whole entire hour just on this alone, man.
Oops. Tito, you want to?
Yeah, no, look, yeah, for me, depending, I always go back to what essentially my goal is, and my more or less, I'm trying to piggyback my activity towards my goal, right? And that's typically it. In terms of strategy, there's a lot of different strategies, and the way I look at it is, depending on the market, it's going to dictate what type of activity you're going to pursue. I think obviously to Patrick's point, if you would walk in the door, that's ideal, right? If you can get into in front of a decision maker, that's ideal, or in front of gatekeepers, that's always going to be ideal. It's more or less more effective, if you will. But in terms of the input you're talking about to dictate how do you get to that point? Typically, I'm going to say, if I have a cookbook for me specifically, if I think of one, maybe I'm doing 20 to 50 touches a day. However that is, right? Whether that's email, text, calls, door tags, whatever you're trying to pursue, design build, right, if you will, maintenance. And that could lead to roughly setting some, maybe 3 to 5 new appointments a week, which could lead essentially to 1 to 2 sales. I think if I had a rule of thumb, and from what I've heard from more or less a lot of the sales leaders, you want to propose more or less to have a pipeline of 3x of what your goal is, right? That's a pretty safe number. I mean, if you attribute that to baseball, right, and having you batting 300, that's typically how you're wanting to also, dictate your activity. And again, I don't want to segment it to one specific thing. In terms of actual strategy, like Patrick, and also to kind of piggyback off of Patrick in terms of joining networking events, the ones that are particular to the ones that you're needing, that your target clients, right? Again, that's up to the sales leader and up to that salesperson. But ultimately, activity is going to lead to sales.
All right.
I am trying to, some of the questions that are coming up, I am trying to do some typed answers as I can in between.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, and I did want to touch on something as well. Somebody mentioned, and I can't agree more. I believe Errol more or less said, sell on value, not a race to the bottom. Look, the top producers, that's the same sentiment that they all share 100%. You're not, if you're selling a price, here's something I've heard. It's easy to sell cheap. It's easy to sell cheap. Selling the value is really what takes a little bit more skill. And if you're selling a value, it means you're really following a process. And usually it's going to lead to you being a more effective salesperson, and the top producers kind of all share that same sentiment.
I can share a metric on that too, to help everybody that's on maintenance business development. So when you're going out, if I know it's a race to the bottom and I know they're automatically going to bottom bid and I'm feeling them out to find that out, I usually walk away and I don't waste my time on it. Now, on the business I am signing, after it completes 1 year, say all my bids are going out with a target gross margin, I'm putting them out at 52%. We're just pulling a number out of thin air. At the end of year 1 of that contract, I'm looking for 70% of the contracts that I sold to be hitting at that 52 or higher. If 30, I mean, we're estimating, we're always estimating, we're using measurements and stuff to get dialed in. We don't ever going to know the client's exact needs. We're going to get as close as we can through questioning and working with them. But if 70% of your contracts are hitting your estimated gross margin or higher at the end of year 1, I consider that a mark of success.
Because we are on the estimating topic, I think it's just a great point to move to the next question, which is how do you approach estimating and contract pricing? Patrick? We can hear you.
There it goes. Just checking my microphone, and apologize about the dog barking. Somebody must be outside. I approach estimating. I try to have my own approach that's going to be different than everybody else. And what I do when I'm approaching the estimating phase is I want to turn my bid very, very quickly, even on large scale RFPs. Most people try to wait to the last minute. I think I said this in Vegas, Ukarsh. They're, oh, we got to wait because my numbers could get out to other companies. I don't give a shit if everybody in the world sees my numbers. I'm there to close a deal, and I can't close a deal if I'm sitting on an estimate too long. So I'm utilizing tools like Site Recon. The second I get that RFP, I'm running all the measurements. I don't even look at the properties until I get those measurements back. Once I have those measurements in my hand, I'm going through, I'm making notes for complexities based on what I'm looking at. Can't run that mower there, too steep. Gonna have to, you know what I mean? You got to get all that collection of complexities. Then I sit down, I build my budget, and before I turn my budget in, I call the person that sent me that RFP. I walk them through what I built. I tell them where I'm at. I tell them straight up, hey, this is in your RFP. Don't need it. Oh, you have mulch every year? You got 8 inches of mulch down right now. The last thing you need is more mulch. I walk them through everything I found by kinesthetically visiting their property. I tell them the budget I came up with, and I tell them, you know, if this is the budget your property needs. If you need me to do another one apples to apples, I will. But based on how I feel or how I've built your budget on what your property actually needs, how does this look compared to what you're currently paying? And they will tell you. And if you say it confidently and you walk them through and you own what you just put in front of them or just spoke through with them, they'll tell you every single time. They'll tell you what they're currently paying. And most of the time when I'm signing clients, they're going up 10 or 15% to work with me because I put the extra effort in to walk them through the things that most companies don't do when they're just submitting their RFP, turning it in and hoping for the best. And now that I've done that very early in the sales process, I'm following up. And communication is what sets you apart from anybody else. The person with the highest energy wins the deal almost every single time.
Oh, yeah. And I'm pretty sure all 250, 300 people here on the webinar can see your energy, Patrick. Good stuff, man. No wonder you were closing to $1 million. Tita, would you like to comment on what was just shared by Patrick?
Yeah. Look, you know, everyone has a different philosophy in that regard. I usually go back to me, the when I think of estimates and how to get them right. Number one, is understanding your capability, right? And that's going to be different for everyone, and obviously depends on what you're trying to sell. So it's a balance of understanding what you're capable of doing and having an understanding of what your client needs. That is going to come with the conversations, and you know, how can you know, what is a value add to them, and if what we're capable of meets their needs, we can get the estimates right. We can be, and in terms of like when to turn in your estimate, those are obviously, you know, those are things that are going to absolutely set you apart. So constantly look at ways to set you apart within those estimates, but ultimately find the balance of what you're capable of and what their needs are. And if those things match, usually you're going to be pretty effective at getting the estimates right. And never be shy to ask the questions. I mean, if anything, Patrick really showed, you know, in terms of, and I've seen this with the top producers, myself included, you know, I think it's always important to ask a lot of questions, right? And be okay with sharing your, you know, what you can and can't do as well, and what's needed and what's not needed. You know, and I'll say this, there are some pretty complex RFPs at times, you know, that really spell out everything. And I mean, heck, there could be, you know, 50 to 100 pages plus, depending on the size of these contracts. Understand those really as well, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. But the essence of all of this, in terms of closing, it all goes back to the relationship that you have with the decision makers, and that's usually going to set you apart. And then what you get numbers in front of them, they're feeling confident that you're capable of meeting what they're looking for, and hopefully you've also shown them that you're going to bring value in terms of starting a partnership together.
Is your contract and your proposal the same document, or you keep them different? I mean, I just had this question.
So for me, it's my contract is my proposal, but when if I'm doing a 7-figure huge deal or a high 6-figure deal, I'm gonna add to it. I'm not just gonna send them the base contract. I'm going to send them the contract. I'm going to attach a site audit of the property. And here's another thing. If you want to be a million-year sales rep, don't waste your time selling enhancements. Set your CSMs and your account managers up for those enhancement sales by doing site audits. And if clients ask you to price enhancements, you just gently push that off. Our CSM team takes care of that once we've signed the work and once we've signed the deal and we're working together. And honestly, we don't do enhancements for people who aren't maintenance clients anyway, because we all know that labor is a struggle in this country. Just throwing little things like out there, they'll be fine with it. The clients are always fine with it. I didn't sell a single enhancement in 2 years in Chicago, but I set my CSMs up for tons of them. And it also helps them with buy-in. But you have to be able to focus on the maintenance contract sale. So I have the maintenance contract sale. I'll use a PDF editor. I'll work in a full site audit of the property. And then I make a Loom video, usually 3 to 5 minutes, and I walk them through everything I'm sending over. And that is my presentation if I can't get in front of them to do it in person on a big deal.
Pretty good way to differentiate yourself too.
Yeah.
Tito?
Yeah, somebody asked, what are you adding to the site audits? And I want to just kind of piggyback with in terms of what Patrick was talking about. But yeah, like in terms of site audits, I've seen a number of those things. Ultimately, you could use those to analyze the property, some of the deficiencies. You know, I think the nice thing about whatever it is in landscaping, it's ever changing. It's never the same. You can go to a site today and go tomorrow. It's going to be different. It's going to be different every single day. There's always going to be opportunities. It's the nice thing about landscape sales, and that could either be, that could mean for maintenance, or that could be for construct, landscape projects, installation projects, right? It's ever changing. And so site audits are a really easy way to find opportunities to solutions for these clients. So you could add things like, hey, I noticed missing plants. Hey, I noticed this, it's all enhancements, right? Those are great ways great things to share. I haven't really seen, it's not, I haven't, it depends. Everyone has maybe a different school of thought. It's not a way to disparage the competitor, right? If you're going in there and trying to gain new business, right? I probably wouldn't recommend to do that, but it's just finding ways to show the prospect that you are looking for solutions. And site audits, it's a great way. It's easy to more or less take some pictures. Hey, I noticed this on your property. I noticed this on your property. I noticed this on your property. And by the way, if you go with us, we're going to get all that fixed, and we're going to come up with solutions to, more or less have a great partnership long term, where we're identifying these things. And that usually leads to, increased sales. And again, to Patrick's point, in terms of enhancements, those are all could potentially, not all, but a lot of those could be potential enhancement opportunities as well, that maybe a client service manager or an account manager could also assist with those to present on the bid process, right? Maybe some high level numbers. This is what it costs to do, build a wall here, or fix your drainage, or some erosion, whatever that may be. But site audits are easy, effective way to do that. And for me, it worked very well, even for the bid process.
Yeah. And Tito too, you have to remember, these people, whether they're property managers, HOA boards, whoever you're talking to, they take pride. This is their property. You have to point out the good things, the things that your competition that currently has the contract, you have to point those out that they're doing right too.
Yes.
And then you want to throw in a couple of closing tools. One of my favorites is, man, the stone on their monument signs looks terrible. You know what? You sign this $200,000 contract with me. We'll come in and pressure wash, no cost. That's a quick value add. They'll jump on it. Your competition isn't taking the time to do something like that. And it's not costing you much to send one guy there with a pressure washer to go clean up their monument sign. I mean, these little things that stick out, that are going to make you stick out. That's what the site audit is encapsulating for your client.
Yeah, it's remarkable how site audit is seen as a tool only for account managers, but it is really powerful for business developers as well. I mean, how else do you make your contract look different apart from just your company brand and your people on it then? Unless you saw something that was really different on site that others didn't.
Yeah, and you could share that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, you could share that. You could share the site audits, right? That's a great way. Here's your bid. Here's your bid, and also here's a site audit with all the things that I saw, good, bad as well, right? I mean, it's also good to share some of the highlights of your property, beautiful, wall, beautiful stonework, beautiful this. It's always nice to also complement what's going on, but also hear some things that we can help with, and you share that, right? Which is great. And you could pair that too with other services as well. I know Site Recon has more or less a tree, like a tree assessment as well. Which that's a whole different ball of wax, but also brings value to those estimates.
And it's not that hard to do it. We have Justin in the field right now at a property in Jacksonville, Florida. Justin, you there? Can you show us how you do it?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm here in beautiful Jacksonville Beach. I'm at a sample property, which is a big retail center called Pablo Plaza. It's about a 12.5 acre site. Of course, everybody's out here getting their holiday shopping in. So very busy site today. So excuse me if I have to stop and wait for traffic, but yeah, let's just jump in and I'll show you through how we would collect some of those complexities. So let me share my screen here. All right. So like I said, my name is Justin Widmeyer. I'm based out of the Southeast region here. I'm an account executive for Site Recon, and I'd love to meet you guys and perform some of these out in the field with you. So can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me go ahead and open up our mobile application, which is Plato here. You're scribing the field, and an easy way to collect these complexities that Patrick was discussing. So here we go. I'm at the blue dot here, and you can see this is the property that I'm on, Pablo Plaza. You can also see some of the surrounding properties, you know, that may be on your route. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. So like Patrick said, he doesn't even like to go out to the site until he's got that information together. So this is a real good way to already have your information. And I can click here on this layers. This brings up all the measurements that we've already performed. So not only am I out here double checking these measurements and doing a production review, making sure that everything looks correct, I've got this as a mobile tool while I'm performing that. So
Justin?
we can go from there. Yes?
Dude, can you try to cross out the Zoom screen that is out open, the phone screen? Oh, there we go. Thank you. I hate seeing
There you go. I didn't know if you could see that or not. But yeah, I'm right here at this blue dot and I've got cars busting around me, but let's go ahead and let's collect some of those complexities. So this little circle down here at the bottom that kind of has the cartoon dialog box, we just go ahead and we click that, which brings up our create note screen. We've got all these preloaded templates that we can use, but I just want to really collect the raw data. So let's just go ahead and input something here. Weekly hand detail at EV charging stations. All right, so I got the note in there. I'm accessing my camera and just kind of want to show this charging station, and it seems to be an area that gets overlooked. So we've got a real basic note here. We've got our photo attached. Let's just go ahead and progress it to the next, which is going to allow me to slide that note right here to that EV charging station. Simple as that. From there, it's stuck. And we can move on to the next by clicking the same little dialog box here. We've got some dirty beds that probably need some selective application and ground covers. So looks like we've got some weed buildup, a little bit of garbage here. Looks like we need to do maybe a fusillade application or some Scepter TNO. Same thing, real simple note. Took a picture, progressed to the next. It knows where I am already, so I can go ahead and tag that in there. All right, also, just like Tito was saying, you don't want to just identify the shortcomings or, you know, what's wrong. You also want to go ahead and identify what's right out there as well. So we can review those notes while we're loading up here. See, I've got a few that I made yesterday, a few that I've made this morning, and then our reports go ahead and generate here. So any of those notes that you take real quick, we can go ahead and pull up this audit. You know, and this is one that I created this morning, but showing all the same things. This is a document that's easy to keep in your office, that's easy to share with that customer, that's easy to share with your production teams, and can really kind of document these high critical service items that you want to see performed every week. So not only are you showing the property manager that, hey, we've identified these, this is an area of concern for us and your property, but we can share that information with them, with the subcontractor, with anybody involved with the site, really. So also, we've always got this information here at hand. So say I need to get these palm trees trimmed out here. I can jump right in and know that I've got 139 palm trees on the site, get my subcontractor on the phone, and get him to give me a bid real quick there as well. So, all right.
Thank you, Justin.
Of course, thank you.
So guys, you can see, I mean, it barely took a few minutes and he was done with it. He had the report. He can send that over to the property manager, or he can take the notes selectively and attach those notes to the proposal that He's going to submit the contract. He's going to submit once he's done with his estimate and he's ready to propose. So it's a very simple tool. I mean, you're going to visit the property anyway. And as you walk around with the property manager or on your own, just getting a sense of what's going on, you take a few notes. It's good for you later on, good for your team, production guys, and so on. And then obviously works great as a differentiation too. I mean, Tito ran at this thing, created a few hundred notes on a couple of sites for us back in 2021 when he was selling maintenance. And I mean, it played its part, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Super effective. It was easy. It shed light on things that even the property manager didn't realize was there.
I mean, one of our customers has had insane success closing business again and again. They've made it part of their standard operating procedure. Every time they propose new work, they're going to add this report in there, and their close rates have practically doubled before and after they actually started doing it. Very, very practical tool. So back to our list of questions, guys. We have mostly gone through these items, but I feel we could have gone more detail. Like question 3 and 4 are kind of similar. How do you stand out in the market? What tools do you use to outperform your competitors? Guys, can you take these questions together and answer them? Patrick, would you like to go first?
I mean, on how to stand out from competition in a crowded market, it's doing the little things like we've already been discussing. But the site audit before you win the work, communicating with the client before you submit the bid, comms, communication. That is what's most sales reps. I got the bid in, now I wait. Maybe I'll follow up once or twice. Well, if you want to win the work, it goes right back to highest energy wins. I'm turning my bid in early in the process, way before everybody else. And I'm spending that time while everybody's waiting until the bid deadline, developing that relationship. The bid, the numbers, you have that conversation very, very early in the sales process. And then you get it turned in. Once you've talked it through the client, they know what you're submitting, you get it in their hands, and then you build that relationship. You're just touching base with them. Maybe you have a bright idea of something you didn't think about, and you follow up a few days later, and you're like, hey man, this is killing me. I thought about this after I turned the bid in. I really want to talk it through with you. That level of energy and commitment to what they're doing, and viewing yourself as an equal. I think Tito mentioned that earlier. Viewing yourself as an equal is a huge part. I teach the challenger sale model. And once you realize that you are an equal and you have to learn everything. I want to know everything about the product that I'm selling, and I want to know everything about who I'm selling it to and how their business is run. When I walk into an apartment complex on a lease up, I'm like, what percentage are you at? First question I ask every single time, what percentage are you at? I know that they're really not going to have a great landscape budget until they hit that over 90 mark. So you have to understand their business for you to be able to sell to them. And standing out from your competition is not being a landscaper. It's being a property manager that's selling landscaping to property managers. And you have to learn that inside and out, man. I'm telling you. And as you can tell, it's all energy, man, all the time. You have to want it. I'm a firm believer in the law of attraction. If you want something, you will find the will to get it.
We'll just add law of attraction to the tools you use. Is there any other tool? Like there are a couple of questions related to the Loom video you brought up, Patrick. Can you talk about what's Loom and what you put in those 5 minutes?
Yeah, so I actually shared the link to somebody that asked it. I've been trying to answer questions as we get a little bit downtime. So what Loom is, it records video from your computer's camera as well as your screen at the same time. So I always do a practice before I do my final one. I'll walk through everything that I want to present and kind of just do it to myself, not even saying it out loud half the time, or sometimes out loud, depends. And then once I have it all down, then I have it all on my screen ready to go. I hit record. It's recording me walking through everything, and I'm making sure that I'm going back and forth, making eye contact and reading what's on the screen. And human attention span is what, 3 to 7 minutes. I never go over 5 minutes on a Loom. I make sure I'm hitting the key details that I want the client to take away from my presentation and the documents I'm sending, and I'm sending that over. In the day and age that we live in now, preferably you want to do this in person with the client, but if you can't, Loom is your next best friend. The actual tools is going to be Loom and Site Audit are my main tools. Trying to pull boards together for Zoom meetings, anything that can make me feel like I am in person when I can't be in person. And I learned a lot of this in COVID. When I first moved to Chicago, it was 2020, and I had no relationship there. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't get in front of clients. Nobody wants to meet with me because there's COVID's going on. So I had to get really creative. And these are the tools that came out of it that I'm still using and still refining to this day.
Very cool. Guys, we're going to stay on and continue the session. I know we are 5 minutes away from ending this, but we still got stuff to cover. So stick around and we'll keep at it. Tito, your points on outperforming competitors.
Look, there is no silver bullet. You want to maintain the integrity of yourself. Some of the top performers, you don't have to think that there's a different way, or you have to be someone different. People appreciate people that are genuine. So be yourself. I've seen some of the best people just be themselves. They're trustworthy and they're different. Always seek opportunities where you can analyze your competitors, analyze what's going on in your particular market, what you're trying to sell, and figure ways out that you can be different. It doesn't have to be anything grandiose. Something as small as a site audit, right? It could great opportunity to be different. And a line that I like that has helped me and some of the best people I've seen is that, hey, I can't tell you why you should do business with me, but I can tell you why others continue to do business with us, right? Ultimately, it comes down to who you trust, who brings you value, and who you feel comfortable with, and that's ultimately up to the prospect. So, I would say that we're living, in a time of a lot of distractions. So, if you're looking in terms of selling now, it's a little bit more of a challenge in terms of getting people's attention because you're getting hit in a lot of different ways, right? Whether it's in person, whether it's in, via a video. Loom is a great tool. I would highly recommend that. It works. It's very effective, and it's another way of more or less getting being top of mind. I think that's the big thing here. We're a very distracted society nowadays, so everyone is, right? If you're looking at your phone, you're getting hit in so many different ways. Email, whether social media messages, and all these types of things. And so are our prospects. We're all in the same boat. So keeping that in mind I would say having a multi-pronged approach in terms of how you get in front of people is extremely important, right? Video, email, text message, all those things nowadays. And don't forget something as simple as a call and leaving a voicemail. Again, but you never want to, in terms of this and standing out from the crowd, don't segment yourself to one or two ways of communicating. Nowadays, I would absolutely kind of have an open mind and be a lot more diverse in terms of staying in top of mind for your prospects. And that ultimately will lead to more sales and just stick to being yourself. That works best. And people appreciate it.
How do you keep
and by the
Go for it, Tito. You were saying something.
Yeah, no, I was also going to say there was a lot of questions in terms of, what other tools. Loom is one tool. LinkedIn is a great platform to also stay in front of people. There are simple little tools like you can record videos, you could record voice recordings also when you're outreaching to decision makers. I saw a couple of questions in how do I sell to, other markets outside of where I am. LinkedIn has LinkedIn has a sales platform within it as well. Use that, create lists. You can maybe have like an email campaign, where you can also email prospect more or less and get in front of decision makers a little bit quicker, easier that way. Phone calls that way as well. But there's a lot of different tools as well that you can have in your toolbox in that sense.
How do you keep the knife sharp day in, day out? month in, month out, year in, year out metric?
Rule number one, celebrate every win. And every win is the same, whether it's a $500 win or a $500,000 win. A win is a win and they all get celebrated. Number two, every time you lose a deal, pull in your operations manager, pull in your branch manager, pull in whoever had any part to do with that bid or those numbers that are put together, and analyze the loss. Try to get feedback from the client. Why wasn't I selected? Why did I lose this? You keep the knife sharp by being relentless, by celebrating the wins to keep yourself motivated, and by trying to put some closure and understanding why you lost. And if you're consistently doing this on both sides, celebrating wins, understanding losses, that's how I keep my knife sharp. And I'm sure everybody sharpens their own in different ways, but that's what works for me.
For me, it's practice. This is a skill. It's something that if you're doing this, you must love it. And it's not something I don't believe. I'm a believer that you're not born with this. I think you could get better at this, and that ultimately takes practice. You could, like I've seen some good, great salespeople. They interview their existing clientele, right? If you're going into a new market with a new branch, interview the existing clientele, right? Or interview your prospects. If you close a deal, interview them. Ask them what about my process did you like? Why did you go with us, right? That typically can help you more or less understand what things are working within your market and within you and your abilities and for you to understand what they're wanting to hear. So for me, it's ultimately just continue to practice on your craft, and that ultimately keeps the knife sharp. And one thing I also wanted to highlight as well, and going back to what tools to use to outperform your competitors, a great process as well. You have to have a process, something replicable. One thing that helps as well to close deals that has helped me, always tell your prospects what the next step should look like, what they could look like, and also give them an opportunity to bow out. Look, we're all here to hopefully provide value, but also give them an opportunity that, more or less understand what the next steps look like, and an opportunity to bow out. It keeps things very peer-to-peer, and it gives a very good feeling and a good experience, and more or less, it builds a lot of trust, and I've seen that work effectively.
So yeah, I mean, and building that process, pipeline management, absolutely huge. So right now my company's running HubSpot, but I'm a big believer of not only do I have my digital pipeline, I need to write it out. I need to have a document. I need to be tracked. So I track everything in my pipeline, but I also have just like a side notes thing that I print out that I keep on my desk that I'm looking at every single day. So not only am I looking at it on my screen when I sit down to go through HubSpot or whatever CRM you're using, I also have, I'll update it once a week and I'll print it out and I'll be making notes. Just in real time, notes like next to a deal that I'm trying to close that I have in my little pipeline that's on my desk. For me, I need the repetition of writing the note as well as moving it in the actual pipeline, and take pride in your pipeline. That is your closing percentage right in front of you. Own the metrics, own your closing percentage, own how quickly, how many deals, how quickly are you building your pipeline? Like if you take full ownership of that pipeline, you will close more deals. I work with so many mid-tier sales reps that every week you got to update this or move this to the right column. Dude, when you're going in to meet your sales manager, have that shit in a row. Roll in, and those are your top performing sales reps, the ones that have the clean pipelines, because they're owning it, because they want to see the metrics that are showing their own success. Sorry, I get passionate about that part.
Love you for that, man. We love you for that. That's just endearing. Keep going. Tito, did you have follow-up thought on that pipeline stuff?
Yeah, your pipeline is absolutely to start with that. If you're not managing your pipeline, it's really hard to understand, how you're doing. I think that's a big part of this, right? It's in terms of your results, where you're trying to get to. So absolutely updating your pipeline is extremely important. And I feel like it's an easy way to meet your goals and without having to go and understand other things that really don't have anything to do with the process and all the nuances. I think it's a huge opportunity, and I've seen the best manage the pipeline, be prepared at all times, and ultimately goes back to a process of what activities I need to get to that, and that's always going to be able to identify that.
Very cool. So we've just gone through our burning questions. In terms of the questions we got here in the Q&A box, Patrick, you've answered 15 of them. I think we got about 37, 22 are still open. Is that correct? You see the same numbers? All right, and then there are some questions here in chat. Okay,
and honestly, Utkarsh, we can, if it's up to you, man, but if you want to release the video and if people want to watch through it again and have follow-up questions, I'm more than willing to go through and answer those. And some of the questions they had might be future sessions because they require much deeper answers than we can give in this time frame.
I mean, yeah, that was a feeling we were getting as you were getting ready for this session, guys. You remember we were talking about it. I mean, it feels like these are just 𝐿 slides, guys. You've already seen those. I'm getting to this one. It almost feels like we got to set up the right forum in which all of these questions can come through with information, best practices that you guys have gone through. I felt like it just makes sense to have a masterclass setup on a weekly basis, where every week we drop in a video. The lessons that these videos will cover will be related to mindset, time management, building the pipeline, maturing opportunities into deals and closing, stuff that we were just talking about, right? Pricing, differentiation, proposals and contracts, handovers and referrals, so that, retention and upsells can really scale. The technology stack, building the sales culture. Larry asked a question here about how many times you meet your team and what you talk about. So that all comes down to team building and sales culture. Very, very relevant topics to get into. And then a lot of Q&A that can happen on each of those topics. So the model that can really work out here is every week we drop in a video that walks you through the best practices. And then on Friday, we meet at the same time as we are meeting today. And we go through the questions related to that topic. If we start next week as an orientation class, right? And you guys are willing for it, come see us in the orientation class. We'll talk about what's in the masterclass. What will the lessons talk about? You like it, you sign up. If you sign up, you basically get access to these weekly sessions. You get access to these videos. And you basically get access to 𝐿 for free for 3 months. Professional plan that can help you order quite a number of properties, get you access for 2 business developers. And as you're growing through learning all these different things about sales, one part of your software piece will be sorted, because that will just come as part of this package. When it comes to sales coaching, it can sell for a lot. Like, all of us have looked at sales coaches and, they charge a lot. But we felt it just makes sense to get value across the first time we are doing something like this. But the guys who will be there on the session with you, helping out with instructions, you have them on call with you here today. And we'll keep adding more guests to this list. So Patrick, like, to answer all these questions that are there in the chat, that are there, that I got on email yesterday, I've copied all of those in a Google Sheet. We can take them up in the orientation class next week, on Friday. And guys, scan this QR code if you want to sign up for it. We'll be there for you, and we'll answer those questions. In the meantime, of course, we'll keep answering them. I wanted to put this out there on the screen so that you guys can think through it. You don't have to pay anything now. Just come to the orientation class, see what we are talking about. And if you like it, join it. If you join it, you pay for it, and you don't like it, we will give your money back. Like, this is no hard feelings. Like, we are doing this only to help. our users, folks out there who really want to perform in 2024, if there's anything we can do to help out, this is like our way of doing it, man. Like that's really about it. Like out of those $399, $300 is just site recon subscription, is like just getting that for free. So all right, questions. Patrick, you were saying.
I mean, I've answered quite a few of these
Yeah.
that are on here. Or I mean, do you just want to kind of dive into some of the stuff that we have?
Yes, sir. Let's do it. So Ashlyn has raised her hand quite a few times. Ashlyn, I'm gonna unmute you so that you can ask your question. Ashlyn, try speaking something into the mic.
Oh, she didn't mean to.
Yeah,
She's just throwing her
She
hand
didn't
around.
mean to.
No worries.
All right. No worries, no worries. Yeah, go ahead, drop something in the chat. We'll answer it. Okay, sweet. Okay? Starbucks gift card. Oh, that's funny. What's the best or some ways to penetrate long relationships to get into places? We are in a market that people just get into these relationships and are scared to get out of them. Wow. What did you do there?
You gotta earn it. It could take. So when I go into a new market on commercial, I'm usually like, I try to avoid apartments. They're like incandescent light bulbs. Their property managers change quite frequently. And when they change, they bring in their own vendor. But what I do like to start with is stuff like HOAs and along, like if you're on a full commercial and you can go after any target you want. Usually HOAs are easier to start with. If you get in front of the board, they're the decision makers. A lot of times, if you earn a property manager's trust, they'll let you get in front of the board quicker, which will help you close the deal. I feel like working with HOA management companies is a good way to get your foot in the door, because to develop Class A commercial relationships, it could take 1 or 2 years of you working with them before you can get an opportunity to bid. And then a lot of times on like high-end commercial stuff, you're not going to bid it and you're not going to win it until your second cycle. These are long-term relationships that you are going to be building. You need to find out what networking groups they're active in. You got to take part of them. And you can't just be the quiet guy in the corner in these networking groups. You got to be joining committees and being active. That's why you say you should only be in 2 groups. Because it's hard to be really active in more than 2 and still be able to put your bids out and do your job. Man, I mean, it's becoming a trusted partner and even friend at times to really get into some of these high level relationships. It's not something you're going to build overnight. And it goes back to starting with what you have in house. What are the relationships you already have that you can expand upon while you're taking the time to build these more long-term relationships?
Thoughts, Tito?
Yeah, look, you got to earn it. It ultimately comes down to that. It takes time to build trust. People have to know a little bit about you. New markets, breaking into new markets, it's the common thing nowadays. A lot of companies expanding their portfolios and going into different new and different markets, and it's a tall task depending on where you're going. But ultimately, it is also doing small things to build rapport, to build relationships, right? Whether it's sometimes it's as simple as going, like if you're going to a networking event, for example, within giving out business cards to everyone. You never know, like you don't have to all just, oh, well, that person's working for this network, for this company, so I'm just going to give out my card to them. You can give out to everyone. You never know where it can lead to. I've seen some of the best salespeople, like more or less, have that strategy, and it's been really effective for them. And again, it takes time. Some of these contracts, obviously, they're annual contracts. Some of them are 3, 4, 5 years. And in that initial time, initial stage, when you're trying to understand your market, you're also trying to understand some of these, like if they're public bids that you're looking after, right? Some of these larger contracts, understand the timeline of that. But introduce yourself, figure out ways to introduce yourself so you can start building out your pipeline as well. Understand these timelines is extremely important. But ultimately, the essence of it is that you have to earn that trust, and that it doesn't happen overnight. It does absolutely take time. And in the interim, it's how are you differentiating yourself from your competitors? And that ultimately is by establishing relationships.
Good stuff, guys.
I believe, I think it was Ray's asked a couple of questions. Do we maybe just want to let him talk with us for a minute?
Sure. Let's see, attendees. Ray, allowed to talk. Ray, man, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey guys, first off, the webinar has been fantastic. I've learned a ton. That's going to help our business tremendously. But so we're in a smaller market with very high end clients, but obviously not as many of them. And so for the commercial HOAs, we are the largest company in our area. We have a lot of. There's only two pretty good sized management companies. We have a lot with one management company. The other has a very, very tight relationship with a franchise, national franchise company that's in our area. And so the ability to penetrate that, even though the quality is not even close to the quality that we provide, and the personal service and the relationship skills and relationship quality, but it's still just even getting getting a conversation.
I hear what you're saying. I've been in this environment before, and I have one technique that I really enjoy doing, and it makes me pretty happy after I accomplish it. Go after their dogs. Go after the sites you normally wouldn't want. Blow them out of the water, and then they'll feed you the big fish.
That sounds good. I'm more than happy to try that for sure.
Yeah, man. Go after the stuff that you normally wouldn't even chase. Go after their worst looking, lowest grade accounts. Take a couple of them, completely turn them around. Even if you got to break even on them, if you want to earn the business, you got to take a little bit of a risk, man.
Yeah, and I feel like the things that I've heard you guys say are like the site audit thing was just mind blowing to me, that we haven't thought of that before. But attaching that to the bid, but also I'm thinking like attaching a retention rate of commercial clients that we have to those bids as well, where when we get contracts, we don't lose them ever. And so that I feel like that's also a selling point that I think I want to attack as well. That's
all growth starts with retention. For sure, man. That's the right way to do it.
Well, cool. Thank you guys. It really has been super informative.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Nathan also has his hand raised. Nathan, you want to talk? Just allowed you to talk if you want. All right. Nathan, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you want. I'm gonna look at the questions we got on email. Patrick, I think this was like a really good question. You're managing teams. Look at this one here. Two-part question here. My sales team seems to struggle the most with acquiring new business from high-end clients. Cold calling isn't a great way to do it. It's one. Second, how to better motivate my team. Every person on my team has young children, so there's a lot that they have to take care of at home. How do you motivate them to go above and beyond when they are in the office?
Okay. First part, my sales team struggle with most of acquiring new business from high-end clients. I gotta be honest with you, high-end clients in any particular industry usually know they're high-end. You gotta earn that business by building a relationship. Take them out for a round of golf, nice dinner. One of my favorites is find out when they're going to be having a meeting. Tell them that you're going to bring them lunch for their entire meeting, and ask if you can have 15 minutes of it. Just at the beginning of their meeting or 10 minutes, and you're bringing them lunch, you introduce yourself and you give a brief spiel about your company, and then maybe pick one key topic. Like I know in Nashville, Rose Rosette is running rampant through a lot of our roses here. So I might spend 5 minutes just explaining that. Great way to open the door to start getting in there deeper. Part two of your question, how to better motivate my team. Every person on the team has young children. Okay, so here's how sales works. Sales isn't a 9-to-5 job. It's not a 7-to-4 job. It is how much effort can you attribute to your job 100% of the time. So I like to say that successful salespeople are putting in 60% effort 100% of the time, which means you're available to leave and go take care of your children or your family. But when you get that done during the business hours, are you sitting down at 9 o'clock at night and writing those emails to go out to your clients at 8 o'clock in the morning? Or are you utilizing the time around your family to make sure that you're achieving your own success? Because any successful sales rep is going to tell you, if I get a phone call from a client and they can only meet me at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there if I want to earn that business, and I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work around the life things on the outside. You're never fully working as a sales rep, and you're never not working. And teaching that to your staff and teaching them to work around their personal lives to achieve their goals, I think is going to be a huge tool. So I'm sure a lot of people will answer that question differently, but that's my take on it.
Yeah, I'll defer to Patrick on the and more or less pursuing high-end clients. Yeah, I agree. It's just establishing those relationships in many different ways. And the question number two, in terms of motivating the team, yeah, I mean, look, I've seen some of the best salespeople work 20 hours a week and are effective and can sell multi-million-dollar deals and millions of dollars a year. At the end of the day, it comes, in terms of motivating, that's up to you. And are your salespeople prepared with a plan, right? And I think that goes back to that more or less the cookbook. I mean, and do they have one? If not, that's an easy way to motivate towards metrics, if you will. And obviously, if you're looking for activity, those are all measurable things, and especially for some sales leaders that are looking to manage that way. If the sales reps don't have a plan or cookbook, finding ways that they can have little, they can measure small wins even, right? That's an easy way to do that, and within the confines of their lifestyle, and that's going to be different for everyone.
Angelo raised his hand. I'm gonna allow you to talk, man. Try unmuting yourself, see if it works.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Hey, so I just y'all talked about it a little bit, and Patrick, you actually talked about this touched on it just a bit, was analyzing those losses just as much as you would celebrate those wins. Right now, that really, it's stuck with me, especially as far as where I'm at with a particular bid that we just lost. This particular bid, we went into it feeling really good, really comfortable. The number was where we thought it should be, especially because there was a porter service that they were asking for. We included that porter service, and with everything that they asked for, really felt comfortable with the number that we were going in with. And I get an email day before yesterday stating that we weren't selected as the landscape vendor, and that our bid was actually 40% higher than everybody else's bid. And it just threw all of us off. I mean, I went to my VP of maintenance. I went to his office and I had forwarded him the email, and he was like, dude, was it apples to apples? Like, what do you think went wrong? I told him I have no clue. Like, I really want to dive into this and figure out where it fell off. And he goes, you think you can get a meeting with this particular manager? Do you think you can do a dinner, something that will be enticing, so that we're able to really analyze where that loss is for us. I guess my question is, what would you do in the situation, and how would you pull more information out of this manager so that we have an understanding of where we landed and why we landed there, or even if that 40% is true to what was said?
So when I lose a really big deal and I find out that I'm really high, and it happens, and you can't take it to heart, man, it's part of the game. And it's where you learn. And so this is where you're sharpening the knife. This is a tool for success, is figuring this part of it out. And what you really need to do is, number one, find out who you lost to. Who did you lose to? If you lost to somebody that is known for being really cheap in the market, or cheap in multiple markets per se, and they just give the work away and they're banking on enhancements to carry their company's budget, that's not a loss. You didn't lose at all. But if you're 40% higher than the next highest bid, and this is a multiple bid arrangement, now we really need to deep dive in. So first off, find out who you lost to. Second off, let it cool off a little bit, maybe a couple of weeks, then reach back out and be like, man, we put a lot of effort into that bid. Would you be open to just grabbing lunch sometime? I'll take you out to lunch, and I'd just like to hear more on what I could do better in the future. What can you do better? Always put it back on yourself. What can I do better the next time this comes around? And these big bids, I tell people all the time, you're going to lose it 1 or 2 times before you figure out how to win it. So don't just walk away from it. You're going to win it next time. And what it's going to take to get there is having communication, finding out why they lost, and now start building that relationship. I tell clients all the time when I lose a big bid, hey, no hard feelings. That's great. But if you ever need an outside set of eyes and somebody that's going to shoot you straight and tell you the truth and get you dialed in on anything that has to do with the exterior of your facility, give me a call. I have no problem stopping by and putting eyes on it for you.
That's good. That's good information. No, definitely. I like I said, I wasn't sure what my approach should be. I know my VP, he was like, try to get a dinner with them, try to set something up. But I'll let it, like you said, give it a couple of weeks, revisit it, and try to extract more of that information on who we lost to, and take it from there.
Yeah, a lunch is going to be a lot easier to book than a dinner too. People will give up time during their work day. They get pretty defensive of their time outside of the work day.
I like it. Thank you.
Time for one more question, guys. I guess it's a hard stop for you in 4 minutes, right? All right. You want to pick one of these? Just like go after it.
I like the second question, but I don't know if it's because if you've got a good amount, like, so there's a lot of, there's 5 questions in there. I don't know if you want to cover that.
Metrics. He's talking about a lot of metrics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is a good and excellent sales goal for a maintenance account manager that maintains a book of business and also sells enhancement?
It all depends on what you're capturing in your reoccurring contract. If you're pulling in mulch, floriculture, everything else, that's going to lower that margin. Very, very individualist company-based thing to ask. I would have to literally know your internal setup to give you an honest answer on that.
What is a good and excellent sales? Sorry, go for it.
No, yeah, I was just gonna add to that though. In terms of like a rule of thumb that I've seen that's typical is 30 to 50% penetration rate on that book of maintenance business.
Thanks, Tito. I know Tito works with a lot more companies than I do, and a lot of the companies that I've worked with have very different approaches on how they handle those type goals. So that's a good generalization.
What is a good and excellent sales goal for a construction-based salesperson?
Construction-based? It depends. If you're doing residential design build, I'm going to tell you about 1.5, 1.6 million a year is what a good rep in my company's doing. 2 million plus puts you top shelf. 3 million makes you elite. On commercial, if you have somebody doing takeoffs for you and you've got existing pipelines and you're in a strong market like a Nashville where construction's ending nonstop, I'd say 2 to 3 million is what you should be doing yearly.
What is a good percentage to aim for on overall enhancements based on revenue for the maintenance division? I mean, that's
30 to 50% of the maintenance portfolio is typically what we kind of going back to the first question.
Yeah. Yep.
What is a good marketing budget to boost your brand?
Well, it depends on how you're going to handle your marketing. I would say in any industry, you're looking between 2.5% and 5% of your total revenue. But landscaping in general, it can change dramatically with what your target verticals are.
Yeah, residential is going to take a little bit more. I would say between residential and commercial, residential is probably going to require a larger budget than your commercial folks.
Yeah, I mean, we have a marketing director, we have a full-time videographer. I mean, if you guys go on Instagram and you follow Gardens of Babylon, we have 30,000 followers. It's absolutely amazing for a landscape company. But we are more on the high-end residential side, so that's where our marketing is going towards.
Yeah, I mean, to add to this, like it will totally depend on the channel that you're going after. And so if you're doing online, there's like a different way to get to the budget. If you're doing offline and events, that's mostly for commercial. It's going to look different. What type of tech are you using that works well for boosting, generating, and closing more sales, non-Aspire related?
Site Recon.
Hey, hell yeah.
No, subtle plug, but honestly, no. AI measurement, not even Site Recon included. AI measurement in general has been the biggest game changer for me in the past 24, 36 months.
I would piggyback off of that. AI measurement, and then a CRM if you don't have one.
Definitely. And Aspire can be used as a CRM, and I know they're adding more to it. My company is currently running Boss for the cost savings because we have HubSpot running over it, and we're more design build focused at the moment, and it's running fine for us. I mean, we run Google Suite, we run Slack. So it's the first time I worked for a company away from the Microsoft Office, and I absolutely never want to go back to Microsoft Office again, to be frank with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Microsoft, it just comes packaged with Windows and you just default to it. But there are like better ways to run the same thing. Yeah, I mean, throw in Loom, throw in site assessments, site audits, quite a few tools got talked about today. I think that completes this list of questions from Melissa. At the 1 p.m. mark, Patrick, Tito, any parting words for everyone who's still here?
I love doing this kind of stuff. I hope everybody was able to take some value from it. And any additional questions, please feel free to send them through. We hope to be getting some more stuff put together for the landscape community.
Yeah, same. Love this. I love, I think, everyone is a salesperson. And the beautiful thing about it is there's a lot to learn from everyone, and happy to help answer any questions as well.
Sweet. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, spending all this time with us. If you're interested in continuing to learn this, sign up for the $1 Million Club and the masterclass that we'll be putting together. Send over questions on email. You have the link in the chat. You can reach out to me at Utkarsh, UTKARSH @siterecon.ai. You can find me on LinkedIn. Same thing with Tito. You can find him on LinkedIn, Loom Partners. Patrick, he's in Nashville, but he's on LinkedIn. Good stuff, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time out this Friday and sharing all your learnings with us. Really appreciate you both.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.